Lust always promises fire but never warmth. It comes dressed as passion, intensity, even love itself. But when the smoke clears, it leaves only ashes where trust, purity, and covenant were meant to stand. Before a single vow is spoken, before rings are exchanged, lust has already been at work behind the scenes, quietly sabotaging the foundation of marriage. It is not simply a temptation of the body, it is a counterfeit of love itself. Love builds, lust consumes. Love looks outwards, seeking to give. Lust turns inward, demanding to take. And when a relationship begins with taking instead of giving, with consuming instead of building, it is not the soil of covenant, but the soil of collapse. So many walk into marriage already wounded, already chained, already blinded, believing lust was love, believing fire was covenant. And when storms come, they discover the foundation cannot hold. The tragedy is not that marriages collapse years later. The tragedy is that they were broken before they began. This is the hidden enemy, lust, the destroyer of intimacy, the thief of trust, the silent saboteur of futures. And unless it is unmasked, it will continue to break marriages before they ever begin. Section 1. The seed of false desire. Every tree begins with a seed, and so does every ruin. Before the collapse of a marriage, before betrayal, before divorce papers are signed, there was a seed planted long before, the seed of false desire. Lust is not born in the wedding chamber. It is born in the shadows of imagination, in the unchecked glances, in the small compromises of the soul. It masquerades as love, whispering, "This is what you need. This is what will fulfill you." Yet its root is hollow. It offers sweetness in the beginning, but breeds bitterness in the end. The danger is not that lust feels weak. The danger is that it feels powerful, intoxicating, overwhelming. That false sense of power blinds us. We mistake intensity for intimacy, chemistry for covenant, desire for devotion. We chase the thrill, convinced it is love, but it is only hunger dressed in romance. C.S.LEWIS once wrote that lust does not want a person but a pleasure. This is the essence of the seed. It trains the heart to consume, not to commit. When someone enters marriage with that seed still alive, they do not marry a person. They marry an image, a source of gratification. And when that gratification fades, so does their illusion of love. This is why so many relationships rot from within before they ever begin. The seed of false desire makes us impatient. It tells us to rush, to bypass the slow, holy work of building friendship, trust, and spiritual unity. It demands fruit without planting, intimacy without covenant, closeness without commitment, and whatever is birthed outside of covenant is destined to wither. The most tragic part is that lust blinds discernment. It covers red flags with perfume. It convinces people to ignore warning signs, character flaws, dishonesty, spiritual emptiness, because the thrill feels too strong. People say, "We're in love," but love has patience. Lust has urgency. Love seeks the highest good of the other. Lust seeks the quickest satisfaction of the self. What begins as a spark soon becomes a fire that devours. Couples step into marriage carrying unspoken expectations fueled by lust, believing their spouse will endlessly satisfy an appetite that no human was ever designed to satisfy. And when disappointment comes, when reality sobers the fantasy, resentment begins to grow, not because the spouse failed, but because the seed of false desire was never uprooted. True preparation for marriage is not about finding the perfect one. It is about cleansing the soil of the heart, uprooting lust, and planting seeds of covenant love. For what is planted in secret will bear fruit in public. Every lasting marriage begins not at the altar but in the soil of desire. And unless that soil is purified, the seed of false desire will always sabotage the harvest of love. Section 2. Shadows in courtship. Courtship is meant to be the sacred time of unveiling, when two souls slowly, carefully, prayerfully discern whether God has joined their paths. It should be a season of clarity, of truth, of discovering whether the foundation is strong enough to carry a covenant for a lifetime. But when lust steps into this season, it casts shadows across everything. Lust is a master illusionist. It blinds, it distorts, it creates mirages of compatibility where none truly exist. A man or woman consumed by lust cannot see the other person for who they are. They see only a reflection of their own hunger. Instead of learning the depths of character, they are captivated by the surface of chemistry. Instead of listening for the voice of God, they are intoxicated by the thrill of desire. This is why so many marriages collapse. They were not built on rock but on sand. Sand shaped by fantasy, infatuation, and the fragile illusions of attraction. Lust rushes people forward before their souls are ready. It says don't wait, don't test, don't examine. Feel now, take now, claim now. And so courtship becomes not a season of discernment, but a season of indulgence. Think of it this way. When you walk into a dimly lit room, shadows make everything look larger, smaller, or altogether different than it truly is. Lust casts such shadows on the soul. Red flags look faint, deep wounds are overlooked, patterns of selfishness are excused as quirk. Instead of recognizing that the person before you lacks spiritual depth, you call it passion. Instead of acknowledging their lack of discipline, you rename it freedom. The truth is hidden behind shadows, but lust insists you've found the one. Neville Goddard said that imagination creates reality, and this is true in both the sacred and the destructive. In courtship, lust feeds on imagination, crafting fantasies of how this person will complete you, how life together will always feel this electric, how covenant will forever satisfy this hunger. But marriage is not fantasy, it is reality. And when fantasy and reality collide, it is not reality that breaks, it is the illusion. Consider this, the thrill of lust cannot sustain the weight of covenant. No one can remain intoxicated forever. Passion cools, excitement steady. Life settles into rhythms of bills, responsibilities, children, sacrifice. And when the thrill fades, those who built their courtship on lust look across the table and realize they never truly knew the person they married. Worse still, they realized they never truly loved them. They loved the shadow, the illusion, the fantasy. This is why lust in courtship is deadly. It blinds us to character. It makes us mistake fire for foundation. Fire can warm, but it cannot build a house. It burns quickly and consumes everything it touches. And when the fire is gone, nothing remains but ashes. But covenant love sees in the light. It does not hide in shadows. It seeks truth, asks hard questions, waits patiently, and looks beyond the surface. Covenant love is not afraid of time, for time only strengthens what is real. Lust, however, is terrified of time, because time exposes the truth. The shadows of lust will always betray you. They will lead you to invest in the wrong person, bind yourself to someone you were never meant to marry, and walk into a covenant that was broken before it began. Courtship is either the soil where seeds of love are nurtured, or the ground where shadows of lust corrupt everything. And unless the shadows are confronted, they will follow into marriage, unseen, unchallenged, and undefeated. Section 3. The silent sabotage. Lust does not roar when it enters a marriage. It does not announce itself with banners or warnings. It creeps in silently, like a serpent in the garden, wrapping itself around trust, intimacy, and covenant, until what was once sacred becomes strangled. This is the silent sabotage. Many believe that once vows are exchanged, lust disappears, that marriage itself will cure the hunger. But lust is not satisfied by covenant. It is only irritated by boundaries. A wedding ring does not silence the appetite of lust. It only sharpens it. What was once indulged in secrecy during singleness will now demand satisfaction in the marriage bed, but not through purity, through comparison, through fantasy, through endless dissatisfaction. Lust teaches people to take, not to give, and so in marriage, it transforms intimacy into transaction. The sacred act of becoming one flesh, meant to be a reflection of divine union, is reduced to consumption. Instead of love asking, "How may I serve you?" lust demands, "What can you do for me?" The bed becomes a battleground of expectations instead of a sanctuary of covenant. This is why countless marriages fracture in silence, not because of infidelity alone, but because of the prison of imagination. The husband trapped in comparisons with images he's consumed. A wife chained to fantasies shaped by novels, films, or past desires. Two people lying side by side, but separated by miles of mental distance. Lust whispers to them both, "What you have is not enough. You deserve more. You need more." The sabotage is subtle, but devastating. Trust begins to erode. Affection becomes conditional. Conversations grow shallow, and the partner once seen as a gift is now measured against fantasies they were never meant to compete with. The tragedy is not only in betrayal, it is in the slow death of reverence. History repeats this lesson over and over. Samson, chosen by God, was not conquered by armies, but by desire. David, a man after God's own heart, almost destroyed his kingdom with a single glance that birthed lust. These were not weak men. They were strong men undone by unchecked desire. Their downfall did not begin with scandal. It began in silence, with sabotage at the level of imagination. This is why lust is more dangerous inside marriage than outside of it. Outside it tempts, inside it betrays. It takes the covenant bed designed to be a place of unity and poisons it with division. It is like planting weeds in a garden and expecting the flowers to thrive. Slowly, intimacy is choked out until marriage becomes a shell. Two people legally bound, spiritually divided. The most tragic part of this sabotage is that it often goes unseen. Couples blame stress, money, or incompatibility, not realizing the true culprit is the silent thief, lust stealing intimacy piece by piece. Billy Graham once warned that the devil rarely attacks with horns and fire, but with subtlety, appealing to our private appetites. Lust is the perfect example. It never looks destructive in the beginning. It looks exciting, harmless, even normal, but it is building chains in the unseen. And once lust gains a foothold, it doesn't stop with intimacy. It infiltrates respect. A spouse begins to see the other as inadequate. The covenant shifts from partnership to competition, from reverence to resentment. What was once us becomes me versus you. The marriage was designed to reflect heaven, but now mirrors hell, a place of isolation, comparison, and endless hunger. The silent sabotage of lust is this. It convinces you that covenant is too small to satisfy desire. It whispers that what God made holy is insufficient. And if that lie is believed, the marriage collapses, not with a bang but with a slow, quiet erosion that began long before. But here is the truth. Lust only has power when it is hidden. Its sabotage works in silence. Once exposed, once confronted, its grip begins to weaken. But too many couples live unaware, allowing lust to thrive in secret, while their covenant slowly dies in public. The enemy doesn't need to destroy marriages with explosions. He only needs to plant seeds of lust and let them sabotage the foundation from within. If this message stirred something in you, don't just walk away inspired. Walk away equipped. Lust is relentless, but so is the power of God's word when you know how to wield it. That's why I created 7 biblical secrets to destroy lust before it destroys you. Inside, you'll discover the exact principles to break free, reclaim your mind, and protect your future. Don't wait for tomorrow. Chains are broken today. The link is in the description and pinned comment. Click it, grab your copy, and start walking in the freedom you were always meant to carry. Section 4. Covenant versus contract. Every marriage stands on one of two foundations, covenant or contract. One is eternal, the other disposable. One is rooted in sacrifice, the other in self-interest. One is born in the heart of God, the other in the culture of man. Lust thrives where marriage is treated as a contract. A contract says, I'll do my part if you do yours. I'll stay as long as I get what I want. I'll commit, but only under conditions. A contract is fragile, conditional, and always calculating. It asks, what do I gain? What do I lose? But a covenant is holy ground. A covenant says, I give myself, not because of what you do, but because of who I am before God. I stay, not because it is easy, but because I swore, before heaven and earth. My love is not a transaction, it is a sacrifice. A covenant reflects the eternal love of Christ for his church, faithful, unyielding, unbreakable. This is why lust is incompatible with covenant. Lust does not know sacrifice, it only knows satisfaction. Lust cannot endure vows, it only thrives in condition. Lust will always reduce marriage to a contract, because contracts serve consumers, and lust is the most ruthless consumer of all. Our culture, drenched in consumerism, has trained people to treat relationships like purchases. If the product doesn't please, return. If the experience doesn't excite, cancel it. This mindset poisons the sacred by turning people into objects. Instead of seeing a spouse as a soul to cherish, they are seen as a provider of benefits, romance, stability, status, intimacy. And when those benefits waver, the contract feels broken. Divorce becomes the refund policy. The truth is, many marriages are broken before they begin, because they were never entered as covenants. They were entered as contracts, dressed in wedding gowns. The vows said forever, but the hearts whispered as long as it were. This is not marriage, it is negotiation. And lust thrives in negotiation, because it always wants more than what it was promised. Billy Graham once said, "The highest form of love is not based on feeling, but on commitment. Covenant is commitment, even when feelings fade. Contract is commitment only as long as feelings remain." Lust hates this truth, because lust is addicted to feeling. It cannot survive when love is tested in fire, when romance cools into routine, when passion is asked to stand beside perseverance. This is why the early days of marriage can feel like revelation. When the honeymoon fades, the contract mindset begins to protest. Why aren't you making me happy anymore? Why don't I feel what I used to feel? But covenant says, I did not marry you for a perpetual feeling. I married you to walk with you through every valley, to hold you when storms rage, to stand with you when beauty fades. My word before God is stronger than my hunger. Covenant love is not blind. It sees clearly. It does not ignore flaws, but embraces. It does not demand perfection, but gives grace. It does not run from difficulty, but endures it. A contract would crumble under such weight. Only covenant can carry it. Lust has no patience for such strength. It whispers, you deserve better. Find someone new. Why sacrifice when you can satisfy? But here lies the trap. Those who abandon covenant to lust discover too late that lust never fulfills. It devours until nothing is left, and then demands more. It leaves people wandering from one relationship to another, always consuming, never satisfied. The strength of marriage is not in romance, but in reverence, not in pleasure, but in promise, not in contract, but in covenant. Until this is understood, lust will always find a foothold, but once it is grasped, lust is stripped of its power, for nothing breaks a covenant sealed in the fear of God. Marriage is not a contract between two people, it is a covenant before heaven, and when that truth is embraced, lust's counterfeit promises lose their shine. Section 5. The war for the imagination. Every war begins in the mind long before it spills into the world. And when it comes to lust, the battlefield is not the body, it is the imagination. The greatest victories and the greatest defeats happen in the silent theater of thought. Neville Goddard once declared, imagination creates reality. This is no mere philosophy, it is spiritual law. What you allow to live in your imagination will eventually find form in your choices. What you rehearse in secret, you will manifest in public. Lust understands this truth more than most believers. It knows if it can hijack the imagination, it has already conquered the body. Think about it. Every affair began as a thought. Every broken marriage began as an unchecked fantasy. Every betrayal was first a picture in the mind before it was an act in the flesh. Lust doesn't need your body first. It needs your imagination. Once your imagination bends, your actions will follow like shadows after light. This is why lust is so powerful. It sanctifies fantasy as though it were harmless. It whispers, it's only a thought. It doesn't matter. No one will know. But imagination is the womb of reality. Thoughts conceive desires. Desires give birth to actions. And actions produce consequence. The enemy doesn't need to rush. He only needs to plant seeds. Billy Graham often warned that Satan is subtle, not loud. Lust is his quiet masterpiece. It doesn't storm the gates of your life. It sends whispers into your mind. One glance, one memory, one fantasy replayed like a song. And soon the imagination is no longer a tool of vision, but a prison of addiction. Here is the paradox. Imagination was designed by God as the furnace of faith. Hebrews declares that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Faith begins in imagination. Every dream, every vision, every prayer begins in the unseen mind before it is birthed in the world. This is why lust attacks it. Because if imagination can be corrupted, then destiny can be derailed. When lust seizes imagination, purity is mocked as repression. Discipline is ridiculed as weakness. The mind, once able to envision covenant, begins to picture only consumption. Spouses are compared to images. Futures are built on fantasies instead of faith. And marriages, though outwardly intact, rot inwardly because the imagination is no longer aligned with covenant, but enslaved to counterfeit. C.S.Lewis once wrote that the devil loves to twist good things into destructive things. Imagination is one of those. God gave it as a canvas for creation. Lust turns it into a screen for addiction. What should be used to envision generational blessing is wasted on momentary cravings. What should be used to build intimacy is polluted with endless comparison. This is why Jesus' words in Matthew 5:28 cut so deep. Whoever looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. He was not exaggerating. He was revealing the battleground. Adultery begins in imagination. Unfaithfulness begins in vision. To lose the war of imagination is to lose the war of destiny. But here is the hope. Imagination can also be redeemed. The same mind that has been enslaved by lust can be trained for covenant. Just as lust plants seeds of destruction, faith plants seeds of life. Every time you redirect your imagination from fantasy to vision, from indulgence to covenant, from lust to love, you are taking back territory. You are not repressing your imagination. You are purifying it. The war for the imagination is not about denial, but direction. Denial says don't think at all. Direction says, think higher, think holier, think covenant. It is not about suppressing imagination, but sanctifying it. When imagination is aligned with God, it becomes a weapon of destiny instead of a prison of addiction. The greatest marriages are not built on bodies alone. They are built on shared visions, shared dreams, shared imaginations redeemed by God. Couples who win the war of imagination step into intimacy deeper than lust could ever counter. They are not chained by comparison, for their eyes are fixed on covenant. They are not divided by fantasy, for their imagination builds the same future. But those who surrender their imagination to lust will always feel empty, because lust promises fullness that delivers famine. It promises intimacy but produces isolation. It promises fire but leaves only ashes. The war for the imagination is the war for the soul. Win it, and marriage becomes a covenant of vision, purpose and legacy. Lose it, and marriage collapses under the weight of shadow. The question is not whether the war exists. The question is who rules your imagination. Section 6. Generational consequences. No sin ever stops with the sinner. No choice ever ends with the chooser. Every decision, holy or destructive, ripples outward like a stone cast into a lake. And when lust poisons a marriage, its venom rarely remains between husband and wife. It flows into children, grandchildren, and generations yet unborn. Scripture warns us, the sins of the fathers will visit the children to the third and fourth generation. Exodus 25. This is not a curse of fate. It is a reality of consequence. When lust-driven unions collapse, they leave behind legacies of brokenness. Children inherit the wounds of parents who mistook passion for covenant. Homes become battlegrounds. Trust becomes fragile. And those who should have been nurtured in stability grow up learning instability as normal. Think of the child who watches father's eyes wander, or mother's heart grow bitter. Think of the home where silence is thicker than love, where parents sleep in the same house but live in separate worlds. That child does not merely inherit DNA, they inherit patterns. They learn from example that intimacy is fragile, that commitment is negotiable, that lust is stronger than love, and unless the cycle is broken, they repeat it. Generational consequence is not always loud. It is often subtle. A daughter grows up chasing men who consume her, because that's what her father modeled. A son grows up treating women as transactions, because that's what his mother tolerated. Children rarely do what they are told. They do what they see. And what they see in a lust-driven home is brokenness disguised as normality. History proves this over and over. Abraham lied about his wife. His son Isaac repeated the same lie. David fell into lust with Bathsheba. His son Solomon drowned in lust with 1,000 wives and concubines. Patterns rarely stop on their own. They echo, they replicate, they amplify. This is the danger of lust in marriage. It births generational curses. A father's private indulgence becomes a son's public addiction. A mother's secret dissatisfaction becomes a daughter's endless search for validation. A single compromise in one generation becomes a full collapse in the next. But here is the sobering truth. The enemy knows this. He does not simply want to ruin one marriage. He wants to corrupt a bloodline. He knows if he can plant lust in the soil of one covenant, he can reap brokenness for generations. He knows if he can distort marriage in one era, he can destroy legacies in the next. Billy Graham once said, when a family is broken, the nation is. This is why lust is not just personal, it is cultural. A generation of lust-driven marriages does not just destroy homes, it destabilizes societies. Divorce courts overflow. Children grow without fathers. Mothers carry burdens alone, and culture begins to normalize dysfunction. What was once shameful becomes celebrated. What was once whispered becomes broadcast. And lust, now unchallenged, births generations that no longer even recognize covenant. But the good news is this: generational curses can be broken. Just as lust can pass down destruction, love can pass down blessing. Just as sin can echo, so can righteousness. A man who chooses covenant over lust, plants seeds his grandchildren will one day harvest. A woman who refuses to bow to comparison teaches her daughters the power of faithfulness. Generational consequence works both ways. What is sown in discipline today becomes a legacy of honor tomorrow. C.S.LEWIS once wrote, "Integrity is doing the right thing even when no one is watching." But when it comes to family, integrity is also doing the right thing because everyone is watching. Your children, your children's children, and the unseen generations waiting on your choices. This is why the war against lust is bigger than one person, bigger than one marriage. It is a war for the future. Every victory in the present rewrites history for those who come after. Every time lust is resisted, a bloodline is protected. Every time covenant is chosen, a legacy is secure. Lust breaks marriages before they begin, but worse still, it breaks generations before they arrive. And unless the seed is uprooted, the cycle repeats. But when one man, one woman, one couple chooses to confront lust, they do not only save themselves, they save their children, their grandchildren, and generations that may never even know their names. The stakes are higher than we realize. Lust is not just after your marriage, it is after your legacy. And until you fight for covenant, you are not only surrendering your present, you are surrendering your future. Section 7. The refining fire of true love. Lust consumes, but love refines. Lust devours quickly, leaving nothing behind, but true love, covenant love, is a fire that purifies rather than destroys. It does not weaken those who enter it. It makes them stronger. It does not strip away dignity. It forges it. It is the difference between a flame that rages uncontrolled and a forge that crafts steel. True love is not soft. It is not sentimental fluff. It is not merely romance, chemistry, or butterflies in the stomach. True love is discipline. It demands sacrifice. It calls forth the deepest parts of you, the parts that lust would rather keep buried. If lust is the counterfeit fire, true love is the refining fire. Marriage, when entered in covenant, is not the end of desire. It is the transformation of desire. It takes the wild, selfish hunger of the flesh and refines it into a holy hunger. A hunger to give, a hunger to serve, a hunger to build. Where lust says, take more, love says, give more. Where lust says, I must be fulfilled, love says, I must be faithful. Where lust leaves ashes, love leaves legacy. And here lies the paradox. The refining fire of true love is not easy. It burns. It exposes impurities. It tests patience. It demands endurance. But like gold purified in flames, love that survives this fire emerges unbreakable. Lewis once said, love is not affectionate feeling, but a steady wish for the loved person's ultimate good, as far as it can be obtained. That is the forge of covenant. Think of the blacksmith. He places raw metal into fire, not to destroy it, but to strengthen it. He pounds it, shapes it, refines it until it becomes a weapon fit for battle, or a tool fit for building. Marriage is God's forge. Every trial, every disagreement, every sacrifice is fire meant, not to weaken the bond, but to strengthen it. Lust cannot endure this process. It flees the moment the heat rises, but love remains. Love endures. Love is perfected through the fire. This is why so many marriages collapse when tested, because they were never built on love, but on lust. When hardship came, the counterfeit burned away, leaving only emptiness. But those who entered covenant with love discover that trials are not the end of passion. They are the refining of passion. They come out on the other side with a love more durable, more enduring, more holy than they could have ever imagined. Billy Graham often reminded couples that a good marriage is the union of two forgivers. Forgiveness is the flame's most powerful tool. Lust cannot forgive. It can only demand. But love, refined in fire, learns to forgive. Again and again, 70 times 7, because it is rooted not in feeling, but in covenant. This forgiveness refines both souls, breaking pride, earthing humility, and cultivating intimacy far deeper than fleeting attraction could ever provide. The refining fire of true love also reveals something lust could never imagine, that discipline is not bondage. It is freedom. A man who disciplines his eyes to honor only his wife does not live in chains. He lives in freedom, uncorrupted by comparison. A woman who disciplines her heart to cherish her husband does not live in repression. She lives in joy, unshaken by temptation. Discipline is the fire that burns away the chains. Lust pretends to break but only tightens. Marriage built on covenant becomes rebellion against lust. It becomes a holy defiance, a refusal to bow to the consumerism of culture. Every act of fidelity is a blow against the enemy. Every act of sacrifice is a strike against selfishness. Every moment of choosing covenant over lust is a declaration to heaven and hell alike. This union is not for sale. This fire will not be extinguished. This covenant will outlast every counterfeit flame. The refining fire of true love is not only about surviving marriage, it is about transforming souls. Husbands become stronger, wives become deeper, children inherit stability, and generations inherit blessing. What began as two flawed people standing before God becomes a legacy of strength, forged in fire and unshakable in eternity. And here is the beauty: when lust finally dies in the fire of true love, intimacy is reborn, not shallow, not transactional, not consumptive, but sacred. The bed becomes not a battleground of expectations, but a sanctuary of covenant. Desire is not destroyed but purified, deeper and richer than lust could ever counterfeit. True love does not fear the fire, it welcomes it, because it knows the fire does not destroy, and when the refining fire is embraced, lust loses its grip, marriages become unshakable, and families become fortresses. From the Garden of Eden to the broken homes of today, lust has whispered its counterfeit promises. Take now, feel now, live now, but its promises always rot in your hands. And yet love, true covenant love, never rots, never fades, never burns out. It grows, it strengthens, it lasts. We began with the truth that lust is a counterfeit fire. It pretends to be passion, but leaves only ashes. It pretends to be intimacy, but births only isolation. It pretends to build marriages, but breaks them before they begin. And this is why so many unions collapse, not because love failed, but because lust was mistaken for love. But hear this: lust is not inevitable, it is not unbeatable, it is not destiny, it is only powerful when hidden. Once it is exposed, once it is confronted, once it is named for what it truly is, the chains begin to fall. The silent sabotage ends when the silence ends. The war for the imagination is not won in one battle, but in daily choices, daily disciplines, daily refusals to let lust rule the mind. And here is where the turning point comes. Covenant is not built on perfection. It is built on direction. You do not need to be flawless to enter covenant. You need to be faithful. You do not need to have a pure past. You need to pursue a pure future. God does not call the perfect. He calls the willing. And when a man or woman turns from lust to love, from counterfeit fire to refining fire, they step into a strength lust could never give them. Marriage in its truest form is rebellion against a culture of consumption. It is two souls declaring war against selfishness. It is two flawed people choosing, day after day, to rise above hunger and step into covenant. It is not about constant feelings of romance. It is about unshakable commitment, even when the feelings waver. It is not about never being tempted. It is about refusing to bow to temptation. Think of the generations waiting on your choice. Think of the children who will either inherit wounds or inherit stability. Think of the grandchildren who will either walk in chains or walk in freedom. Your fight against lust is not only for you, it is for them. Every battle you win today rewrites the story for tomorrow. Every covenant you protect today secures the destiny of generations. And yet the choice is always before you: lust or love, contract or covenant, counterfeit or eternal. Lust is easy. It takes no discipline, no patience, no faith. It feeds today and starves tomorrow. It excites for a moment and empties forever. It feels powerful, but it leaves you powerless. Love is hard. It demands sacrifice, forgiveness, patience, endurance. It burns away pride and refines character. But love, true covenant love, leaves you stronger, fuller, freer. It satisfies not for a moment, but for a lifetime. It does not leave ashes, it leaves legacy. This is the choice every man and woman faces before the altar ever arrives. Will you prepare for marriage by purging lust, or will you walk into marriage already sabotaged? Will you fight for covenant, or will you let lust fight for you? Lewis once wrote that hell is the enjoyment of one's own way forever. Lust is hell in disguise, the endless chase of self, the eternal hunger for more, the prison of appetite, with no exit. Love, on the other hand, is heaven on earth, a glimpse of the eternal union of Christ and his church, a reflection of divine covenant that no demon can counterfeit. So rise. Do not bow to the whispers that say everyone does it. It's only natural. It doesn't matter. It does matter. It always matters. What is planted in the imagination will one day bear fruit in reality, and the fruit of lust is always bitter, but the fruit of love, the fruit of covenant, is always sweet. Rise and discipline your eyes. Rise and guard your imagination. Rise and uproot the seed of false desire. Rise and reject the shadows that distort courtship. Rise and resist the silent sabotage in marriage. Rise and remember, covenant is not a contract. It is eternal. Rise and protect not only your present, but your legacy. Because when lust is unmasked, it loses its power, and when love is embraced, it cannot be broken. The refining fire of covenant outlasts every counterfeit flame. This is the call, not to settle for lust's shadow, but to embrace love's substance, not to live for hunger, but to live for holiness, not to enter marriage as a consumer, but as a covenant keeper. For in the end, lust breaks marriages before they begin, but love, sacred, disciplined, covenant love, builds marriages that no storm, no temptation, no demon can destroy. Choose wisely, choose covenant, choose love that refines, not lust that consumes, and in doing so you will not only save your marriage, you will save your destiny. Lust has always pretended to be freedom, but in truth it is slavery disguised as pleasure. It promises intimacy but breeds isolation. It offers fire but only leaves ashes. And for countless marriages, lust was the unseen thief, breaking trust before vows were even spoken. But there is a greater truth. Lust is not stronger than love, and it is not stronger than God's word. Every whisper of temptation can be silenced. Every chain can be shattered. Every legacy corrupted by lust can be restored by covenant love. The future is not doomed by the past. What destroys one generation can end with you. This battle is not just about avoiding destruction. It is about stepping into destiny. Your mind can be renewed. Your imagination can be sanctified. Your marriage, present or future, can be protected. You were not created to be a slave to desire. You were created to walk in authority, in holiness, in covenant that reflects heaven on earth. But freedom never comes by accident. It comes by truth, by strategy, by revelation. That's why I poured everything into my ebook, 7 Biblical Secrets to Destroy Lust Before It Destroys You. Inside you'll find the weapons, the scriptures, and the strategies to finally uproot lust, reclaim your imagination, and prepare your heart for unshakable covenant. Don't wait for lust to sabotage what God designed for greatness. Don't let the silent thief write your story. Take authority now. Step into the freedom Christ died to give you. The link is in the description. Click it, get the ebook, and arm yourself with the wisdom you need to win this battle, not just for you, but for your marriage, your children, and generations after you. This is your moment. Break the chain. Choose covenant. Choose freedom. And let love, not lust, define your legacy.